Okay, time for a little sort of football 101, X's and O's type video. I don't make these too often, but I always enjoy them when I do make them. Just a little about me though, just so you know, if you're new here to the channel, I am someone who, listen, I am not a football coach. I don't consider myself an expert on all this stuff. I have a basic understanding of kind of the, football 101, so to speak. And that's what I'm going to kind of try to share with you today is sort of just the kind of simple stuff on what Kyle Shanahan tries to do, why his scheme is so effective, and also what Steve Spagnuolo does, why his scheme is so effective, and who has the edge in this upcoming Super Bowl. So you see the setup on the screen. The 49ers are in red and the Chiefs are blue. Why are the Chiefs blue? Well, because both teams are red and yellow. I felt like it was kind of hard on the eyes. So we're going with blue for Kansas City. But, the setup is what both these teams like to do a lot. And it's going to be mixed up, of course. This isn't going to be one exact, setup for each play. But, this is what the 49ers like to do, and this is what the Chiefs like to do. Chiefs like to play their two safety deep, have a slot corner in there, and the 49ers like to have, their 5 offensive linemen plus Kittle right next to the right tackle. Usually, you have Juszczyk in there as well, and then Christian McCaffrey as the halfback with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk out wide. So let's say they're all running routes. All 5 eligible receivers are running routes here. Well, then what happens? Well, this is potential good news for the, for Steve Spagnuolo, right? Because he can do whatever he wants. And that's kind of what the Spagnuolo scheme is all about. Giving yourself an opportunity to do whatever it is you want to do. If he wants to play cover 2 man, well, he can do that, right? Both the safeties that are deep stay deep, and then you have an eligible, a player to cover each eligible receiver. Well, okay, but what if you want to send pressure? You can do something like that, where you're going to have the safety who's lined up to the offense's left, he stays deep. The safety lined up to the offense's right, he can pick up whoever it is. It could be a halfback, a fullback, a tight end, but he picks up somebody, and then you still have your other 4 guys who are ready to cover eligible receivers, still cover eligible receivers. Now that linebacker, he can come in and blitz. And the way that this is set up is kind of perfect for Steve Spagnuolo because anybody across the field could potentially, pick up a receiver, meaning that you could have any of the 5 other players blitz, which is very confusing for opposing quarterbacks, right? It could be a corner blitz, it could be a linebacker, slot corner, whoever. The scheme works regardless. You could even do this if you wanted, to have multiple players blitz and then have the, both safeties pick up eligible receivers, right? So that's what makes Steve Spagnuolo's scheme so deadly, is how many different options he has. But now let's reset. Well, what do you do if you're the San Francisco 49ers? Let's say Steve Spagnuolo, again, if he's not setting pressure, it's kind of obvious, right? You run a concept, hope your receivers can get open. But what if those 2 guys are blitzing? Is there an answer? I mean, multiple players blitzing. Well, yeah, there is an answer. You can do that, which in this scenario, Kyle Juszczyk picks up a blitz. You then have an offensive lineman pick up, the blitz on the left side. And just like that, boom, you have 6 guys to cover these 6 guys who are trying to get to Brock Purdy. Not just that, but in doing this, you still keep Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. None of those guys are blocking here. Now, this means that there are those 5 one-on-one matchups, but there is an important thing to note here as well. There's that safety right there who, I actually screwed up this graph. It looks like he's supposed to be covering the tackle. Of course, that's not the case. He would be covering the fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, on this play. So the second he sees Juszczyk blocking, well, then he could run in and either try to rush the quarterback, or he could just stay deep and be a single safety deep. So let's say he does that. Let's say he stays deep. I'm assuming that's what would happen. So now it's basically a cover 1 blitz instead of the all-out blitz that maybe you were initially going to do. Well, then, what if San Francisco's doing that? What if they have Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel just running deep shots down the field? The safety deep can't cover both of them, and this now means that there could be one-on-one matchups down the field. And this is where, coaches will kind of always tell you, hey, at the end of the day, a coach can put you in position to succeed, but it's the players who win the games, and this is exactly why. Because, yes, for Kyle Shanahan, he could scheme up these, really not even scheme up, but these situations will happen. There will be downfield shots. The question is, who can win? And if L'Jarius Sneed is blanketing, Brandon Ayuk all game, who's usually their deep threat guy, well, then you actually might be in a bit of a peculiar position for San Francisco because, this is usually the key way that you can beat this. However, if Brandon Ayuk is winning down the field, well, then you're really in trouble if you're Kansas City. Brandon Ayuk winning these matchups, maybe you have the safety shade over him, but then Deebo Samuel can win his matchups as well, you would assume, and even George Kittle's in the mix. Haven't talked about him, but he's a guy who can win one-on-one matchups. The reality is, Kansas City's covered really well all season, but I don't know if they've had a task quite like this to cover 3 guys that are quite that talented. And I didn't mention Christian McCaffrey, another guy who's really talented. So that's kind of the issue. Let's go over to the running game now. Again, it's, we'll talk about the scheme and how this works, and it's usually going to end with, players have to win. But let's just talk about, again, if this is the situation, 2 safeties deep for the Kansas City Chiefs. What if the 49ers do that as their blocking concept? You might notice, well, okay, that should work out, right? You have 2 safeties who are deep, and that's the closest unblocked player, is the safety to the offense's right if this is what they're doing. Granted, just because you have a player to block everybody doesn't guarantee you're going to get a win right here, right? I mean, a Chiefs defender can just make a play, get around a blocker, but it's certainly not an ideal situation if you're Kansas City. And again, a safety can come in and make a tackle, but again, that it also possibly means if McCaffrey makes one guy miss, he could go to the house. So that's a dangerous situation. It is. So you might be wondering, well, wait a second. If the Chiefs are playing 2 safety deep, is this just a terrible strategy all around? What's the way that the Kansas City Chiefs can win? Do they just have to win their one-on-one matchups, or can they get, can Steve Spagnuolo get some wins? Because yes, the players can always cover at the end of the day. They can always, make a blocker miss and make a tackle at the end of the day. But, is there a way Steve Spagnuolo can win? What if Spagnuolo does that, right? Has a guy blitz. Wait, we already talked about that. Yeah, the 49ers can just pick it up. But the 49ers are doing this as their blocking concept. That's their play as designed, and they don't realize until it's too late that there is a blitzer coming from there. Well, now you have a straight shot towards Brock Purdy, right? So just because, yes, there is some danger, for Steve Spagnuolo and the fact that, yes, there are enough blockers that can come in and make a play, Steve Spagnuolo has been incredible over his career at dialing these things up at the right times and figuring out ways to, fool opposing quarterbacks, fool opposing offensive linemen, especially to get these types of things to happen. So that's one potential answer that Spagnuolo can do, but there is the other answer. What about this? This is a situation that can work where you see, just bring a safety in, right? Now you have a situation where, couple of issues here, because if you are doing something like this, do you want to have 5 defensive linemen, which might be a move, which you can do to have enough defensive linemen to do that. But then, what you're probably doing is having Trent McDuffie in the box there. And, would you rather that? You might be taking a safety off the field here, or are you taking McDuffie off the field? You're having to take a player you like off the field probably, or a linebacker off the field. Either way, there's some issue. But still, if you do this, here is the benefit. That would be the blocking concept, which you might notice right away, this feels a lot more possible for Kansas City to get a stop here. For one, that player is now just going to be completely blocked off, unblocked off the edge, so play has to move a lot quicker for Christian McCaffrey. Also, those blocks just do not feel as, as great here in this situation. So definitely there's some concern that way as well if you're the 49ers fan. And that's maybe something the Chiefs can do. But again, there's the obvious downside, a deep shot down the field. And that's part of why, I often talk about how important that deep shot down the field is in football. Because if you can't win on that, well then the Chiefs can run this coverage all game, and they can, if L'Jarius Sneed can defend against, Brandon Ayuk, who I'm assuming he'll be on, and, and Deebo Samuel's not getting open down the field either, they might still be able to get some plays, but they might not be able to get the splash plays, and that's exactly what Kansas City might want. If you take away the running game and take away the deep shot game, then things could really work out. However, again, if Kansas City can't defend against Brandon Ayuk, which, listen, Kansas City's defended against everybody this season, but I don't know if they played a team like San Francisco with the receivers they have. If Ayuk is able to get some plays down the field and they can't play this coverage, well, now all of a sudden, San Francisco can run on you. Of course, this is another potential aspect in all of this. What if they just drop back and play zone coverage for a lot of the game, which I could see being possible? Now, again, you still have the same dilemma of single safety deep versus two safeties deep, right? Of, play a single safety deep, you're open down the field, outside the numbers. If you play two safeties deep, you're, leaving yourself open in the running game. What it can do, though, is just allow more guys to be in the area. But here's the one reason why I don't know if I would love this strategy if I am Kansas City. What happens if the 49ers run the ball, right? And again, I should mention, not all these concepts are specifically Chiefs, the 49ers, dependent. Like I said, some of this stuff you might already know, but still, I'm assuming some people don't know this, so I find it interesting to talk about at least. Let's say that Christian McCaffrey is running towards the offense's right. Well, what do the linebackers and slot corner have to do? Well, they have to move in, right? They have to make sure that they move in and try and tackle Christian McCaffrey. And I think you might already know where I'm going with this, but this is what makes the 49ers scheme so effective and the Kyle Shanahan play action so effective. You can then have, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, whoever you want, just run over the middle. And with linebackers now out of position, there should be an easy window to make that throw, which is why that over-the-middle play action route has been so deadly for Shanahan over the years. So it feels to me like anything that Spagnuolo does, Shanahan should have an answer for. So for Spagnuolo, it's about staying one step ahead of Shanahan, which is not easy to do, but he has had some very impressive moments over his career. But you just have to think that, in my opinion, viewing this, and this is kind of offense versus defense in general, but especially in a game like this, given how many weapons that Kyle Shanahan has at his disposal, I do think that you're going to see more situations where Shanahan schemes someone open than Spagnuolo is able to, scheme a play to work defensively. I think more often than not, the way that the Chiefs are going to have to win is by winning their own one-on-one matchups, which is that possible? Absolutely. They've done it all year, so no reason to count them out. But it should be a very interesting chess match. That's my attempt at kind of explaining the basics of it. But yeah, what did you think of this video? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.